So in the first video, we had a look at some of the main concepts of the S6 console, and I think you can see that there's a huge amount of information on the console to help you mix more easily. In this video, I wanted to show a few things that I think are particularly useful for music mixing. When we did the first part of the video, we talked about using the process module and the knob module in kind of a channel strip mode, so that when I choose dynamics, I get dynamics in a row for that fader. If I choose EQ, I get EQ in a row for that fader. But of course, all of these keys are soft, meaning they can be relabeled or reprogrammed with any control. So what I'm going to do is, this is my vocal channel here. I'm just going to choose EQ and then push expand. This means that now in my knob module, I have all of those EQ functions spread across one knob module for that one channel. So instead of a channel strip, I now have an expand for that one channel. That gives me a lot of control over frequency, over frequency, for example, and if I choose dynamics, over my dynamics control. But of course, this works with any parameter inside of Pro Tools. So I could go to my inserts, or plugins if you like, and choose my plugin control. So the plugin control is now spread over my two knob modules that I have. So I have a huge amount of control over a large number of parameters at once. If I go back to EQ, for example, I might want to turn on my high pass filter, and let's just change the frequency of that there. And I might want to be changing my high pass filter while changing my upper EQ. It may be something that you want to do in a song. So having both of those controls available in front of you is a great thing. The other thing that we've done in this version 2 of the software is we've made expand mode just a little bit more easy to understand. We now have an outline to show you which channel you're expanding. So when I choose a different channel and expand it, we can see that there's an outline to show currently which channel we have expanded onto the module. Now while this is a great feature and very usable, customers who have previously used a D command or D control might be used to having a dedicated EQ and dynamic section. The really nice thing with version 2 of the software, we can actually do the same thing, except a lot more flexible, so I think it's really cool. I'm going to choose my settings menu, go into surface. This is the same place where we set out the surface in the first place. I'm going to choose config and then expand. So this is going to allow me now to choose any knob module to be my expand module. I'll explain what this means in a minute, but simply let's choose the two closest to me, 1 and 2. So we can now see that inside of my surface here, I have two modules that are labeled 1 and 2. So if I push done, what that now means is I have two dedicated modules for different parameters. I can set what those are by pushing the home key just here. I have an EQ as the first function, and on the first knob module, and dynamics is the first function on the second module. So if I choose a channel now, this channel here, you can see that this has taken the channel that I've attentioned and expanded my EQ and my dynamics out to the module. So this means that whatever channel I choose, it will dedicate my EQ and dynamics to these two sections, meaning I always know where they are. The really cool thing about this is, and more flexible than our previous console, is you can have a backup function. For example, I have some VCAs in this project. If I choose a VCA, of course, it doesn't have dynamics and it doesn't have EQ, but what I've done is under the backup function for EQ, I've put bus. So now from my master fader, I can now see all my slave faders directly from that expand knob module. If I go back to a track that has EQ, it becomes EQ again. So while I have a dedicated module for EQ and dynamics, it's a lot more flexible than it was in the previous consoles, because you can choose from a large range of backup functions, whether that's an insert for a plugin, whether it's instrument control for MIDI volume and MIDI pan, pan or any of these other controls, I now have that as a secondary backup function for that channel. So I think that is a really, really useful way of getting around a mix session, to have you be able to have quick access to really important features like EQ and dynamics. So that's just a quick idea of how we've expanded on the expand idea within the console. There's another thing I just quickly wanted to show. Of course, when you set up a music session, you often want to do all of your EQ and all of your dynamics at once. So what you might do is, from our global section, push all, and then choose dynamics, and it's going to put all of our channels into dynamics at once. If I want to do EQ, it will put all of my channels into EQ at once. And that gives us a really nice quick way of setting up our music session at the beginning. If I want to look after all of my dynamics, all of my dynamics are there. If I want to look after all of my EQs, it simply switches to all of my EQs. And similarly, if I push expand, now all of my modules are in expand mode. So now any function I select will instantly expand up onto our knob module, as you can see here. So again, however you want to work, if you want to work in channel strip mode, like this for example, let me just get rid of these expands here. If I want to work in channel strip mode, I can do that. If I want to work in expand mode, I can do this. If I want to dedicate modules to expand, I can also do that. So it's very flexible. You can set up the console to work the way that you want to work. So that's just a little bit of information about expand. So I hope you've enjoyed that video, and we're going to have a look at some other features coming up in the next video.